Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blitzkrieg, our own strategic affairs show. Much has been made about 5 Rafales which landed in India at Ambala very recently, out of the 36 that we had ordered. But there is a larger picture in place here. There is a larger story about India's fighting strength in the Air Force, the number of squadrons going down. We are told that the sanctioned strength of the squadrons is 42, and today we are at 30. We are also told that with the depleting strength due to the phasing out of the MiG-21 Bisons, this figure is likely to go down. These are very serious issues and they impact national security directly. Today I have with me Air Marshal P.K. Borbora, who has been Vice Chief of Air Staff when he was serving in the Air Force, decades-long illustrious career of an air warrior. He's been posted in Russia, in the Embassy of India in Russia as the Air Attaché. He's also held important appointments in the Eastern and the Western Air Commands. Sir, Jai Hind and a very warm welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is about the strength of the fighter squadrons. Why this number of 42? Why this magic number of 42? What has happened that it has come down to 30 and it's likely to go down further? And how does it impact our overall national security scenario?
Right. So there is always a debate of numbers in this country because we Indians always believed in good numbers, 1.3 billion people, etc. We always believed in numbers, unfortunately. Now the stage has come and the time has come that numbers is one thing and technology is the second thing. We cannot necessarily have only numbers, but technology doesn't exist with these aircraft to be able to give you the results that you desire. So, let us look at this 42 or 44 number of squadrons. These have been derived over a period of time based basically on the RM's op directive. The op directive states that we must prepare for a two-front war. Okay? That is one. And of course, we have to review these numbers because of the very fact, just look around you today in India's borders. We got the north, which we have to take care of. We've got the northeast that we have got to take care of. And we have got the west. Surprisingly, another thing that has shown up now, quite nice and bright, is actually south. The maritime area has become very, very important. As you are aware of the Chinese expansionist views and the South China Sea problems that we are facing. So, south has also added to it. So, looking at our overall situation, I personally don't think 42 or 44 is the question. We need to review this, and I'm sure the Air Force is doing it. But at the same time, to take care of something in the south, which was initially totally blank, we've got one Sukhoi squadron plus one LCA squadron now based in the south. Right. Now we come to what can we do about it? If today I were to sign for an aircraft, brand new aircraft, whatever be the numbers that we want, the first aircraft will not come in 7 to 10 years' time because these are going to be high-tech aircraft built to the requirements of the Indian Air Force. You know, these Rafales which are bought off the shelf but integrated with equipment which we have chosen is taken us 3 years plus. So, like you mentioned yourself, the MiG-21s will go, then the Jaguars will go, I presume, then the MiG-29s will go, and someday the Mirages will also go. So, what are we going to do about it? I'm sorry, options are very few. Options are very, very few. Can the government give us that kind of money to go ahead and purchase? Do we go in for Made in India? And Made in India has its definite plus points has got is also definite negative points. Look at the LCA for that matter. I am not blaming HAL totally for that. LCA Mark 1, which we have ordered a certain numbers, will come in on its own sweet time. You cannot push them. Even the Western countries take a long time to be able to come up with a new aircraft. It will take. The Mark 2 is still on the drawing board. So do we have any option? Yes, we have. Now, for any progressive country in the world, there are three things that are required. Firstly, political issues in the international scenario, a strong economy, and parallelly, a strong defense services. Now, it's up to the government to decide how do you get these three things running parallel to each other, because that's the only one India's position in the World Forum will go up. Otherwise, I'm sorry, we will still be a second-rate country. That's my personal views. Look at the cost and delays of procurements. You are aware of the Rafale costing. It's costing, I think, 59,000 crores. The basic cost of the aircraft is nothing very much. It is just about 600-700 crores. But the add-ons in terms of electronics, in terms of self-protection, in terms of weapons, etc., 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 make the cost go up more than double. Today, do you know a modern weapon, a BVR, cruise missile, etc., cost crores of rupees, one single one cost crores of rupees. Do we have the money? No. So, India would have to go into a phase where we try and upgrade these aircraft, which we are doing from time to time to extend their overall life. But everything has got a life. We have extended life of aircraft which goes beyond 50. The Jaguar will go beyond 50. The Mirage 2000 will go beyond 50. We will have to keep upgrading them, but there is a life. They will go away someday. So we are stuck in this dilemma. What's going to happen? Then secondly, I feel personally that there are many types, getting many types of aircraft is another major headache from the maintenance point of view. Major headache for any Air Force. So we are trying to see, hopefully the Air Force is doing thinking on this, they have, I know it, that we've got to cut down or restrict the number of types of aircraft, and let's see where we go. But end of the day, it is numbers plus technology that has to be thought about. What is the correct balance? Is it 42 squadrons? Is it 50 squadrons? Is it 36 squadrons? But technology will have to come in to be able to override some of the issues of numbers.
Absolutely, sir. So you mentioned a point very interesting about indigenization. And the Prime Minister has been very vocal about it. He talks about Atmanirbhar Bharat. But the truth is also that the LCA program has gone over budget. The LCA program has been delayed by years, if not by decades. And all these are single-engined aircraft. Now, the Rafale is a twin-engined aircraft, sir, a 4.5 generation twin-engined aircraft. How do you achieve Atmanirbharta? How do you achieve that level of indigenization where you say that, okay, I'm not going to waste my precious dollars buying stuff from outside, I can make them inside India. And there are a lot of civilians, a lot of people not from the Air Force, who question the fact that if we can send our own satellites into space, why can't we make our own fighter programs or have our own fighter programs? Forget about fighters, sir. We have not been able to make a good rifle so far, an infantry rifle. The INSAS is an absolute disaster, sir, having used this myself. But all I wanted to say was that what is the way forward? What do you see as the way forward, sir?
Very valid question. Like I said, we've got to marry now numbers and technology. Technology, like say the latest of the aircraft, like the Rafale, is an omni-role aircraft. I can use it for 3 roles simultaneously. We got multi-role aircraft. We can use them for 2 roles, 3 roles simultaneously. We can have these aircraft available to us. They say that the Rafale should be available for 5 sorties a day. Unlike in the earlier days where it was some of the aircraft gave us only 2 sorties a day. Or now they are giving us 3 sorties a day. We've got to keep the serviceability of our aircraft high. We are trying our best. I know we have tried our best with the Russians, but we haven't been able to achieve our target of about 80% serviceability. It is very difficult. Now, made in India, make in India. The best of countries, except what happened in World War II with the US and the UK, etc., which produced aircraft like, hotcake buns out of the oven. I'm sorry, that doesn't happen today. Even Dassault had said they can give us maximum 18 aircraft per year, and our HAL very categorically put up their hands and said, sorry, I can't give 18 aircraft. The manpower requirement by HAL to produce the same aircraft in India was almost double that what France was taking. Because after World War II, the West didn't leave us with aircraft engineering. They didn't. They knew that we will move forward if we have that technology, and HAL was not given the rights for getting the correct technology. That is one of the drawbacks. That is, of course, an international issue. But where we can look in to be able to strengthen our Air Force is getting force multipliers. Force multipliers, I mean that they are the class of more drones maybe. We are long way for the unmanned aircraft, fighter aircraft, long way away. But is that going to be an answer? I don't know. We are looking for more eyes in the sky. That is, of course, the satellites, AWACS, the P8Is, etc., which AEWs, etc., which gives us more eyes to be able to look into where the threat is likely to emanate. We require air-to-air refuelers so that I can swing this aircraft from one sector to another sector to be able to operationalize within the shortest possible time. So this is where maybe numbers will be kept under control, but we will never achieve the numbers that even 44 squadrons or 42 squadrons, if I'm talking of, like I said, if I sign contracts today, even in another 20 years' time, I will not be able to achieve the numbers of 42 or 44. Forget larger than that. We require definitely technology. That's why we keep talking of transfer of technology. We require to have self-protection jammers of very high class, because I cannot afford to lose aircraft to the enemy because of lack of self-protection jamming system or electronics. And of course, we require a strong deterrence so that there is no misadventure by our so-called unfriendly neighbors. We definitely require that. So, in other words, this Make in India is a damn good thing. But unless HAL imbibes and produces technology which will give us the results that we want for, more so in radar technology, in weapons technology, we are moving forward, yes, but at a very slow pace, because firstly, I feel really honestly, having worked with HAL for such a long time, is we lack patriotism in the public sector units. Pardon me for saying it, but I'm saying it for the public. Unless we as a nation stand up, we stood up now when the conflict is going on in the north, or so-called face-off is going on in the north, that the country has come together. We have to do something to be able to improve our technology. Like you said, if we have made spacecrafts, why is it so difficult? It is very difficult to produce a fighter aircraft. Very difficult. It took, I think, the F-16 about 20 years to really come to be a functional Air Force, functional aircraft in the US Air Force. So deterrence, is one thing that we must have. And if we can create an arc from Delhi or from any place in India covering, say, Beijing and other areas of their sensitivity, it reduces the probability of a conflict, even a small conflict, a short conflict. But we must be able to go ahead.
I'd like to draw your attention towards this entire thing about India saying that, we should have armed drones. People are talking about the Guardian, the Reaper, etc. Now, these are no replacements for a fighter aircraft because these are sitting ducks in the sky. So they are slow moving while they have endurance of more than 30 odd hours and they can drift at 50,000 feet, etc. And they have high precision Hellfire missiles and all that. So they have an array of weapon systems. But the fact of the matter is a fighter aircraft is a fighter aircraft. Do you see certain commonalities between both these platforms? Certain commonalities which can say that, okay, maybe this operation of a fighter aircraft can also be done by an armed drone. Maybe there is a small 10% overlap, so which can be done by an armed drone. Is there a possibility, sir?
Why not? If our intelligence units do their job, I see no reason why drones can't be made effective. Drones can get through to targets without the human life being played around with, hit maybe ground-based radars, specific targets which have the drone weapon systems can take on. We have to, yes, but like you said very rightly, it cannot replace an armed pilot-flown aircraft. Like I said, unmanned fighter aircraft will take a long time. We need to be very clear in our minds, and we require to have the government support. I'm talking of all the three services. We need to put our heads together to find as to what can be done to reduce the time factor to procure or produce and then move ahead. I remember I was in IDS headquarters about, when was it, about 20 years back, more than 20 years back. And I really found that in some cases of some of our services, we have ordered for the same pencil. Someone has ordered for an 8-inch long pencil, some have ordered for a 10-inch long pencil, someone for 9-inch long pencil from the same company. But somehow, being in the same uniform, we couldn't come to an agreement of buying the same size pencil for all of us. It was happening that we were looking for weapon systems of surface-to-air missiles of different ranges, or surface-to-surface missiles of different ranges, 70, 80, 50. Why can't we go in for one type which may not totally suit your requirement, but at least we will keep the cost factor less and give lesser problems to the DRDO, etc. And of course, we need to join up. If we can't do it alone, we need to join up with someone else who will, and we'll be mutually supporting each other, like it's happening in the Quad for that matter. So, and of course, I would like to say one thing here, since we're talking of join up. It's my personal opinion that we shouldn't join any forum that is coming up, whether it's ASEAN, whether it's in Africa, whether it is SAARC, and then you have your Quad. Pick up a few important ones based on India's futuristic requirements. At the political level, at the economic level, and of course at the military level. And let us concentrate there. If we do that, we would be able to, I'm sure, be better prepared than what we are at this moment of time. Because here the problem comes, all our practically or every one of any kind of a thing is of nuclear today. The conflict of tomorrow will be short and swift. We have to fight conflicts or be prepared to fight conflicts on a 24/7 basis. Indian Air Force have taken on trials to be able to see as to how we can have our pilots available for 24/7. For what length of time I can have a pilot in the cockpit. You know, the long endurance aircraft can fly to 10 hours. With the poor pilot tied to a seat of an ejection seat aircraft for 10 hours, can you imagine what is the problem? Your blood supply stops to the body and brain. Your natural calls of biological issues of going for a small release of pressure in your abdomen. We are wearing diapers and flying. We are looking at medicines to fly. We have to be able to concentrate and be prepared for a 24/7 conflict in the future, wherein men, machine have to be able to fit into each other and produce the results. Gone are those days of what is happening generally around the world.
Absolutely.
Middle East
Sir.
is a clear example of years and years with American power, with Russian power, Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. Everywhere we've gone into extended. Now Libya is going into extended fights. We can't afford. We have to come to a result within 15-20 days. If not, it might escalate into something which we have no control over, and that's a nuclear issue. I can't, no one ever factors this nuclear issue into any discussions because we don't know.
Yes, sir.
We don't know.
Absolutely, sir. My last question to you is in two parts. First of all, there have been a lot of articles in the mainstream media and also comments on the social media by various people who say that they know, and they say that, well, our equipment earlier was primarily Russian in origin, but now more and more we are getting Western equipment. And they say that there is a problem. Can my aircraft talk to my submarine? Can my submarine talk to my land forces? So the problem of interconnectivity between the three services or even within the Air Force, because you have different platforms. That is number one, part one of my question, sir. And part two of my question is, I'd like you to do some future gazing, sir. Crystal gazing, if I may. What do future wars to you look like?
Okay, so first we come to interoperability, which you're very, very right. With that technology we didn't have, our public sector units have not been able to come about with anything very versatile. Whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force talking to each other or within themselves itself is a problem area and will remain a problem area. Yes, we have moved in that direction, but we have not been able to satisfy ourselves or the three services. It is a very difficult task. It is to have a so-called secure means of communication at all times. To some extent, we all have moved forward, Army, Navy, Air Force. Navy's requirement is slightly different because they go totally silent when the submarines are operating. And we also can't keep chatter. But we have got technology now, like the data transfer system from the AWACS to all our aircraft, from one aircraft to another aircraft. By designating targets by a larger number of people and passing it down to aircraft or maybe ground fire, which will happen, but it will take time. Interoperability is not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing. I can assure you one thing. With so many departments looking into the issues of communications and interferences, etc., it becomes even more difficult. Not that we can't do it, it will take us a long time, but please believe you me, it will take us a long, long time. The second issue you had mentioned is what you visualize the future. Well, the future will be obviously from the Air Force angle, as well as I presume from the other two services. You have to be able to detect your enemy well in time. You have to have very good intelligence, whether by satellite communication system, satellite look system. You have to be able to pick up a target or a threat. If we pick up a threat, we will have the weapons. We have weapons today also to be able to take down a threat at 200 kilometers and beyond at times. But it's very important. Like if I'm going to launch a BrahMos missile, which costs us over 10 crores of rupees per missile, if I don't have hardcore intelligence about the location, exact location of the target, or plus minus say a few meters, that weapon cannot be launched, and if launched, it is a waste. So we have to again go back. My first sentence is technology, technology, technology. We have to develop technology and within home. No one, repeat, no one, no friends or foes are going to give us technology just like that. They're going to either demand a phenomenal cost, or they've got it and for some reason they love us, they might give it to us. Do you know that the F-35 technology of the US, they didn't want to part with all the technology to the greatest ally, the UK. So that is how difficult it is to get technology off the shelf. We have to do it ourselves. We can do it. We have the brains. But maybe we're lacking money as a nation to be able to pump into these areas rather than look after our poor, our healthcare system, our education system. I don't know. That's the politicians who will know better. And remember one thing, no one is your friend unless is a friend in need. Okay? No country will come to you saying that take this, take this, take that. Either they'll demand money or they'll demand something in kind. What China is doing all over the world today, they're giving money and they're buying off other countries. We may not do that. We are a democracy. We shouldn't be thinking on those lines. But they are doing it. I don't know. Our policies are so mixed up at times. We are in a little bit of a tiff with Nepal here on this side. And Ceylon, or rather Sri Lanka on that side. At the end of the day, it's a money game. And it is my country comes first game. The day we overcome these small issues, which I'm just saying small because of the word small, but they're very major issues which India's policymakers will have to think and rethink again and again and again.
Right, sir. Thank you very much for speaking to us, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with Air Marshal P.K. Borbora, he spoke about a lot of things. He spoke about not just numbers. He says it's important to have technology. He emphasized on research and development and why our public sector undertakings need to pull up their socks and bring their A game on the table. He also said that even your best friend, meaning other countries, will not give you all their technology. We need to develop technologies inside. And when it came to future gazing, he said that the wars are going to be fought at a totally different level. We need different capabilities. But in the end, all that matters is, can you develop those capabilities inside India? Otherwise, it does not amount to much, because when push comes to shove, you can only depend upon your own country. Thank you very much for watching this program. I'll come back to you next week with another edition, another episode of Blitzkrieg. Till then, from my team and I, Jai Hind.